Hello, and welcome to the Hidden Life Podcast, the podcast where I unveil some of the hidden truths in health, lifestyle, food, and travel with some of the most interesting and exciting people. This is episode 3. I'm joined by Wanderlauren, a part time traveler and YouTube vlogger. We discuss her inspiration, the do's and don'ts of travel, lockdown, and much more. Enjoy. Wanderlauren, how are you?
Oh, hi, I'm good.
That's good. Where are you right now?
I'm currently in Manchester in the UK.
And what are you doing in Manchester?
So I currently live here with my boyfriend, and I moved over when I was 22, about nearly 4 years ago. So I'm originally from Perth, Australia, but I decided to take the plunge and move to a different country.
And why specifically the UK and why Manchester? Was it for a job? Was it for...
So yeah, so originally I went traveling, and I wanted to be able to, I went on this big trip, and it sort of made me catch the travel bug, you could say. And I wanted to be able to travel more often. And I was thinking, if you're living in Perth in Australia, you may or may not know, like, it's really hard to travel quite often because it's quite expensive and it's quite far
Yes.
from a lot of other, even Asia. And I thought if I was going to travel more often, more than 1 or 2 trips a year, I was going to have to either save up lots of money and go like on a long-term traveling sort of thing, a couple of months, or I was
Yeah.
going to have to live in a different country, somewhere like England, where it's close to Europe and I could go to Europe often. And I thought, well, I'd like to experience living in a different country as well. So England was a no-brainer because they speak English, and I could easily get a visa there. And my grandma was born there, so I could get a longer
Okay.
visa, like an ancestry visa.
Yeah.
So I was originally going to go to London, but then my auntie, she lives in Manchester, so I came to Manchester and then just stayed here. So yeah, but now I can travel a lot more often because I live close to Europe. So that was the also really big reason why I moved over.
I mean, it's a pretty good reason. So, you know, um, what age did you start traveling though?
Age. So my first international trip was Bali, woo, which is like the Benidorm of
It is.
for British people. But I think it's a lot better. Like, I think once I came over to the UK, I realized how much everyone's like obsessed with Bali, like all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to Bali because it's only like 3 hours from Perth with my mum when I was almost 19. And then, which is actually
Nice.
quite old, I guess, because a lot of people in Europe and UK, they travel quite young, I think.
Yes, we do.
When you're a lot closer to countries and it's not as expensive. And then I went on this like big Europe trip when I was about 20. So that was like a 6-week top deck trip with my best friend. And that's when I was just like, when I went all around Europe. So I was just like, oh my God, I need to see more.
Well, that's true. I mean, I've noticed that, I don't know if it's just an Aussie thing or maybe because it's so close to Bali, but I've noticed that a lot of Australians do pick Bali as their first destination, sort of to break the seal,
Yeah.
that
It's
travel
only 3 hours
seal.
from Perth.
I
So
mean,
it's
yeah,
probably it's cheaper to go to Bali than it would be to travel around Western Australia, like in Perth, and it would be cheaper than going to Melbourne or Sydney, because Melbourne and Sydney are like a 5-hour flight from Perth. So especially for people who live in WA and Western Australia, Bali's like a no-brainer. Like, why would you spend? You could spend half the amount going there to a foreign country than you would be
as
going to Sydney and Melbourne and stuff.
I mean, the only other place I can think of would be Europe, where you're actually spending a lot less money traveling to Europe as opposed to traveling in the UK, because I know for a fact that
Oh yeah,
I've flown and stayed in Barcelona for 3 days, and with including flights, accommodation, and food, it was cheaper than a couple of nights in, say, up north in Newcastle or something like that.
yeah.
So
The
I
UK
can
is so
relate. Yeah,
expensive to travel.
it is. I mean, a lot of other countries are too, but I guess it's just about picking. the sort of destination you want and also including the type of holiday you want. If you're just going for a couple of
Mm.
days, you don't mind spending, a bit of extra cash in a more expensive city. If you're trying to
And I think
do,
it's like you can spend the same amount of money or less, or maybe even like a little bit more, and you can get a whole completely different experience, like different culture, different food, different religions. Like it's so different in certain parts of Europe or obviously elsewhere. Whereas I guess if you're obviously the UK and like if you're traveling around Australia, it's great to travel your own country, like local, but
yeah,
sometimes it's like, well, yeah, you want to pay less or even the same and experience something completely different, completely foreign to what you used to.
yeah, that's it. And now tell me, obviously you're on YouTube. At what point did you decide
Yeah.
to start filming your travels, and why?
So I actually watched YouTube like since I was about 17. Like I started it was mainly makeup. Like I was very much into beauty and makeup, and I was studying a makeup and beauty course, and I was working on a makeup counter. So I sort of started when all those beauty gurus were about
Hmm.
back in like 2011, 2012. And my favorite one, the first one I ever found was Tanya Burr, and I was obsessed. And I actually started my own like makeup kind of beauty channel
Okay.
where I was like doing makeup tutorials, and it was just like I did a few videos and then I lost interest, and I was like, this is just no, not for me. And then after a while I lost interest in makeup and beauty and stuff anyway, and then like travel took over as my main interest. And then pretty much the decision of when I started to be like, okay, I want to make like a travel channel is the same time that when I decided I was going to move abroad
Hmm.
to the UK, because I felt like I had all these ideas of all things I wanted to do, but I never ever like followed through with them. And I
Hmm.
didn't want to be that person that never followed through, like never did anything in my life. So
Yeah.
when I finally was like, you know what, you've got to go abroad, you've got to do something, you've got to do something you really want. And I wanted to create a channel that like pushed people to do the exact same thing that I was doing and showed them that they can do it as well. So I was like, you know what, I really enjoy YouTube. Why don't I do it about travel? So that's when I started. So it was like I'd started like a couple of months before I moved in 2016. So that's what pushed me to do it. I wanted to inspire people to get out there and do stuff with their life, you know?
Yeah, I mean, isn't that why most of us want to get our message out there, is to inspire others who do eventually experience the same thing, to at least be able to learn something and be prepared for when they get there.
Yeah.
I mentioned it to you on Instagram that, even though it doesn't necessarily, in terms of a male female perspective, relate to much of what I do, I could still appreciate that you were doing quite a bit for the females, on there, how to travel a country on your own as a girl, what it's like to wear certain clothes. I think that was your last video.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like obviously as a female, it's a lot harder. And I think it's a lot scarier as a woman and as a female, you know, to go traveling on their own or to go traveling in general. Because unfortunately, like it's a bit like that for a female, more than it is so a male. And yeah, that's also why I wanted to do it, because I wanted to show that, you know, just because you're a female doesn't mean you should stop yourself from doing things or going places or traveling by yourself. And it's just sort of, I guess, educating people that they
Yeah.
can do it as well and how to do it as well without feeling really anxious and scared to do it.
So would you say that you can confidently say that you feel safe traveling as a woman?
Well, I feel like, yeah, I feel like I'm quite a confident person, and I try to not think of like what the worst thing that could happen. Like,
Hmm.
I feel like you get all these, like, people tell you all these things, like, don't go here, don't go there, be careful what countries you go to and sort of thing. And you get your parents and your friends and people being worried about you. But
Yeah.
I just got to the point where I was like, you know what, you're just going to have to go out there and see it for yourself, and just, you know, as long as you obviously make the right decisions, like you don't take too many risks and don't do too many silly things like going and walking around at night time, getting really drunk to the point where you can't even know where you're going. Like doing stupid shit like that is a bit
Yeah.
like, well, you know,
So
obviously
being
it's
being
not you're the
sensible
victim,
and
but yeah, being sensible and just fake it till you make it. Don't just walk around like you're clueless damsel in distress, you know? Like,
lost and don't know how to get back to your
yeah.
hotel.
Sort of, yeah,
No,
just fake it till you make it, you know? That's what I always
it
say.
it's a good thing. I had something. I wasn't in a similar position, but I had met um, two girls in Florence, in Italy. I don't know if you've heard of couch surfing.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
app.
yeah.
So on the app couch surfing, I think there's a chat where people can meet within the city. They say, hey, I'm popping into the city for like 3 hours before I have to move on to my next destination. Do you want to hang out? Let's meet up for a beer. Let's go explore around. Um, and we had joined a group of about 5 or 6 where one of these girls was telling me a story where the place just before, where she was in a very similar position, got completely drunk at a hostel,
Mm.
um, then managed to leave the hostel she was staying in where the party was, walk around the whole city, and then still get lost.
Oh my god. Did she
So
ever make it back?
she did eventually make it back, but
But you
she
just
had,
think who could have approached her and like it's
I don't know.
unfortunate. Yeah, it's unfortunate that women have to, it's the annoying thing is it's unfortunate women have to be so careful with that because it's not the woman's fault that, there's weirdos out there that
Of
do
course.
things and take advantage. That's the problem. But to a certain degree, what at the moment there's nothing much that can be done. We just have to take care of ourselves and I guess just be vigilant and careful. But that's so funny that you mentioned Florence because when I went on that big Europe trip, I was with all those people on that top deck trip. And we went to, I think there's a bar, a karaoke bar where they take all these like tours and stuff, like young people go
Yeah.
on these tours. And I didn't even have that much to drink. And my friend who actually went to the same bar a few years ago, she said she got her drinks back there and she was really sick, like really badly. And we were like, oh, come on, you got your drinks
Yeah.
right. You probably just were a bit drunk. But I got really drunk to the point where I vomited when I got back and everything. And I was like, I don't remember being that, like, no one else was that bad. And it was really weird. But it was funny because I remember we walked back with a group of us and like a few guys and stuff. So we were
Mm.
okay. It's not like we were on that, but our hotel was miles from this bar. But it's just funny how like that happened in Florence as well.
Well, she
Because I've got a
actually,
weird story from Florence.
no, she said that she had eventually gone to where she had remembered previously in the day. They had spent some time um, near one of the cathedrals, and there were some kids skateboarding there who seemed to be a bit friendlier during,
Oh yeah.
earlier in the day. So she'd gone past there, and one of them or a couple of them had managed to help her back to the hostel. But
That's
how?
good.
I mean, look, whether you're a guy or a girl, I mean, to be that drunk, to be in the hostel where you're staying,
Yeah.
partying in the bar where they have, I mean, is it something that, is it the hostel's responsibility who are giving you free drinks for the whole night?
Oh
Is it
yeah.
is it your
Because she
mate's
was in a hostel,
responsibility?
so she should have been like just staying there and I guess being safe because I'm assuming that's where she was staying that night.
It
So
was.
you
So
wouldn't think she
that's,
would go off wandering.
I mean, that's what made it such a great, I mean, a scary story, I guess, if you're in that situation.
Yeah.
But to be staying in a hostel, then managing to go outside, exploring a city, completely drunk and almost blacking out, and not being aware of your bearings, and then
Mm,
still get back. How do you get lost from the place that you're living in? It's happened before. I'll never ever forget
yeah.
a story my dad was telling me, which is kind of related. When we were younger at a family barbecue. Um, and everybody was getting really drunk, and you can't drink and drive, and all the family was starting to leave one by one, and my uncle was so pissed, and he was like stumbling around. He went to the bathroom and he kept asking my aunt, he's like, babe, like where are my keys, like where are the car keys? And she's like, why,
Oh my God.
where are we going, like what, why do you want to drive now? It's you're drunk, you need to stay home. He said, no babe, but we need to still drive home. And she's like, hun, you are home. Like they were partying. The
Oh my
family
God.
barbecue was at his house, and he'd gone looking for the car keys to drive home, and he was already at
Oh
home.
Jesus. And you think how drunk can you be the fact that you're like that confused about like, where you are.
But it happens,
Yeah.
and
I think we've all done it, haven't we, unfortunately? And we have to
yes,
learn from that, I guess.
I've done that. I mean, I have a story, a personal story, which I probably won't, say on here. We can maybe talk about it off air, um, but yeah. So travel is a big part of your life, and
Yeah.
the obvious. has happened for the last 4 months. Something that,
Mm.
you know, a word we're probably going to want to forget in the future. Learn from, but forget, is the lockdown. Now, how, let's start with how. How has lockdown not only, you know, affected your traveling, which is the obvious, but I'm talking in a sense of mentally. How has it affected you mentally? How has it affected your job? You know, let's talk a bit about your job, what you do during the day, if you work at all.
So I pretty much, so it was weird because I went to India at the beginning of March, and then at the end of March I was in Australia, and it was starting to all go downhill when I was
Yeah.
still in Australia. So when I landed back in the UK, it was the first day we went to lockdown, the day I landed.
Wow.
So it was a bit stressful being in Australia and it just sort of going a bit sour. And then pretty much the next day I found out I'd lost my job, which, I mean, we weren't that busy, and I won't say too much because that's probably a bit too
Yeah.
personal, but I mean, it wasn't like my dream job or anything. So I wasn't too fussed, but it was obviously just a bit upsetting and a bit annoying because we were about to go in. It was so uncertain, and I just lost my job, and then I'm not going to get paid. It
Yeah.
was good that they gave me like 3 weeks worth of pay. So that did help for a bit, but yeah, so I lost my job, so not getting any money, and then I had to apply for the dole,
Yeah.
so the job seeker, which it's not loads from the UK because I'm on a visa. I could only get like a real small amount.
Hmm.
So there was that, and then so yeah, I feel like I'm fine. I'm a lot better now. So we've been in it for about 3 months, haven't we?
Yeah.
So I'm a lot better now, and it's been very up and down. But the beginning of it, I was just like, it was so hard to stay positive, wasn't it? It was just like no money, no
Straw. Yeah.
job. So like all those people out there that are furloughed, they're not doing any work, but they're still getting paid. So it's like you can still sort of look forward to stuff, and you can put money away to stuff in your own mind. Like, you know, you can plan and be like, oh, I'm getting paid, so I'll save this money and I'll do this and I'll do that when this is all over. Obviously, we had no idea when it was going to end, or we still don't really know. But I was getting paid, so I was like, oh my God, like I can't plan anything. Like, even if it wasn't just travel, it's like you can't really think about what you're doing
No,
anyway.
no.
So um yeah, so I think I've been a bit, it's quite hard, but I feel like I'm seeing the light at the end of the tunnel now that we're sort of easing a little bit out of lockdown. I don't really know if we really should be, I guess, but
I don't.
there's lots of things yeah, and even though I feel a bit bad because I'm like, I've been going out for day trips and stuff,
Yeah.
you know, going out to towns nearby and like taking a packed lunch and seeing, because we can see some like 6 people, so obviously at a distance.
Yeah.
So I feel like now it's a lot easier to like see the light at the end of the tunnel because we can actually like do some things, whereas before for like 2 months we literally couldn't do a thing.
Yeah.
So it's gotten a lot better. I'm starting to feel a bit more positive, but you know.
I do. I do think I mean, given the circumstances, of course, yeah. I do think that, you know, it's what they said right at the beginning, you know, these are uncertain times, unprecedented. This word was thrown everywhere for weeks. You know, these times are so worrying for people that they just didn't know where what to do next. You know, fair enough, there are some people who are always going to be okay. There still are some people who are doing absolutely fine. You know, they can afford to be in a lockdown for years to come. And
Yeah.
then on the other side of the spectrum, you've got people who are really worried because, you know, they were taking some time to pay their money. I think they were still getting like up to 80% of their salaries, which, you know,
Mm.
you've got to be really grateful for here in the UK. You know, people are at least being helped, you know.
Oh
And
yeah, compared to some countries. So I don't think any like certain countries get any help. Their citizens don't get any help, unfortunately, because a country just can't provide.
no, and
So I
it
think
just
we
makes
are
you,
lucky, yeah.
yeah, it makes you think, and it does make you appreciate that we are in a fortunate position to still be helped, you know. And then you do get people who will complain and say, but you know, it's not enough money, I've got to cover this and I've covered that, got to. Everybody has lost something, you know.
Mm.
It's not like people are being picked out one by one and saying, actually, do you know what, the first five of you, we're going to make sure that you get a decent amount of money, you're taken care of. The next two, I don't know, you probably get a percentage of that, and then the last two, sorry, you're going to have to come back next week.
Mm.
I don't think it's that drastic or that unfair, but I can appreciate what they're trying to, you know, what they have done for everybody. And especially for people who do love traveling a lot. I mean, that's the whole point of today's podcast, is to talk about travel and how it's affected us. Because many people just, they have a high intense job, high intensity
Mm.
environment that they work in, and they love to get away for the weekend. And, there were times during this lockdown, right at the beginning, where people couldn't even do that. And you're right, as things are easing over the weeks to come and the months, and hopefully not the years, I think people have learned quite a bit. They've personally made some changes with themselves and
Yeah.
the
And I
way they're
think hopefully the weather's been good at least in the UK. Oh my God. Imagine if it was winter and like really cold and dry, not dry, cold and wet and dark. That's the word I was thinking of.
yeah
Imagine if it was dark and like it would have been really bad. Like I'm grateful. I think that's the thing I'm grateful about most, the fact that it's been really nice weather and we can at least go for a walk when normally we'd be at work
yeah
in the nice weather. So, but yeah, and we're all in it together. We're all struggling together. I think that's what also makes it a little bit easier. Is like we're all facing the exact same thing, no matter if you're going through it really badly or if you only have been affected by a little bit. Everyone's being affected.
yeah
So it makes it easier to talk to everyone, and you're not alone in a way.
Okay, so feelings and dealing with the way that lockdown's been happening and how things have been going down, how easy has it been to create content for your channel then?
So I
Or
had loads of vlogs and videos and ideas from India. So I sort of had like a bit of a backlog. So when I came back, I was like, well, I'll just get into editing, and I was really focused on them. And then I had lots of ideas for like advice videos for India. So I was like, well, I'll film them. But then after a while, like once I got to the like after all the vlogs and it was
yeah,
time to film the advice ones, I'm finding it hard to sit down and film them because I'm just not inspired. And yeah, so it sort of drizzled out a little bit. Like I've been a bit like, I need to think of other ideas and stuff. But I always think like, I try to upload at least once a week, and usually I do stick to it 95% of the time.
yeah,
Last Sunday I didn't upload a video, but I always feel like, if you're not feeling it, don't try and put pressure on myself, because I think it's there to be, I put my channel up obviously to help people and stuff, make videos to help people. But if you're not inspired,
yeah,
don't force yourself to be in like a bit of a blur mood while you're trying to make a video. So
yeah,
it's been a bit meh, but hopefully because we're allowed to go out and about and stuff a bit more, I'll be able to make more vlogs, because that's what I prefer to do. I prefer to like do a bit more of a walking around vlog. I don't
being
really like
outdoors.
doing sit down. Yeah, like, and obviously educating people and giving advice at the same time, but just sitting down, talking and giving advice,
Yeah.
they're obviously helpful. But yeah, I prefer to be out and about, I guess.
We've been lucky though. There are some great YouTube channels still producing content. I mean, the ones that
Oh
are
my
able
God,
to
yeah.
travel non-stop and have, saved a good portion of their vlogs for, I mean, they didn't anticipate the lockdown to happen, but they were just lucky, I guess. You got some YouTubers who are probably still going to put out content for the next 2 months.
And they're quite entertaining. Like, I think no
Yeah,
matter what they're doing, they're quite entertaining people anyway. Like, if they've got a huge following, people follow them. Like the people I follow, at least, I
yeah,
follow them because I just genuinely like watching them.
yeah,
Genuinely like watching them. Like a lot of the ones I watch, they're all getting RVs. So it's fun watching them like make the renovate the RVs, and hopefully they'll be traveling soon anyway. So
but it's good. People are creative, and it's starting to show. This is the perfect time to really embrace what people have never tried before. Challenging themselves to try new foods. Redesign their homes, redesign their vehicles for travel.
yeah, like none of us have had so much time, like especially if you are someone who's like, oh, I need to do that thing, and then finally now we've like all been forced to stay at home. So it's like, you might as well do those things that you've always wanted to do. Like if you want to do a course or you want to renovate something, now's the time,
Yeah.
or it has been the time.
And I mean, I was reading today. I've got a few points here that I read that the EU is planning to open up tourism again, because I mean there are a lot of countries that, I mean all the countries have been affected, but in terms of tourism, I read here that places like France, they opened up on June the 15th, but
Yeah.
they just opened, for certain passport holders. Italy, they get like 63 million tourists a year. They had to just open, they with no restrictions in play. And then you've got other countries like where is it, Czech Republic, who I read they were doing something called a traffic light system.
Oh,
So pretty self-explanatory. If you're a
traffic light
country,
party.
could be, you know go to everyone that's wearing red. But
Yeah.
if you're in the red
No,
zone,
not wearing red,
yeah,
green.
or green, sorry,
Anyway,
green.
explain.
So if your country is in the red zone, then
Yeah.
you can't travel to the Czech Republic. If you're in the orange or amber, whatever you want to call it, then it's a case by case basis. So some countries they'll allow, some they won't, some they'll try and do on this air bridge system that
Oh
they're trying to
yeah. Whatever
implement.
that is.
Um,
We
and
all
then
know
also,
the UK is not going to be allowed to go anywhere
I don't think
because
so.
we're
I
the
mean,
worst hit.
and then of
No
course
one wants the
green.
UK.
I
Yeah.
mean, it is it their own fault for trying to take over the world many years ago? I don't know,
Maybe,
but
yeah, maybe this is the revenge.
could be.
Who
I
knows?
know that the UK has been trying to push this air bridge system for a while now, because what it essentially means is that, let's take Australia as an example, which they're trying to negotiate heavily,
Yeah, they are.
and New Zealand. So if you come from Australia and you want to visit the UK, then you can happily come here and you don't need to self-isolate for 14 days. As
Okay.
long as, yeah, as long as you're not asking a country's citizen to do that in your country when they visit, then they won't do it to you. That's kind of like
Oh,
the gist of things. Um,
like an agreement.
Sweden,
Yeah.
I read that Sweden pretty much never closed at all, apart from a couple of restrictions. It says here
Yeah, I've
that
heard that.
they never closed. Some schools stayed open, but they were, learning. They implemented this thing called distance learning, where again, I'm assuming students were sitting next to each other, with a kind of chair in between or a table in
Mm.
between. Some
But
schools,
didn't they get high? All of a sudden, they've gotten cases, like a high amount of cases. I don't know. Could be
I
wrong.
must I
I
must
did hear.
admit, I didn't sit, specifically and check each and every country
Yeah.
and be like, hey, how many cases have you got now? And because that would have just been so depressing, which most of
Yeah.
this has been, you know.
Yeah.
And
I have got a flight booked to Spain in August, so I'll have to let you know if I can go and what happens.
well, Spain is on the air bridge system, so
Oh, so fingers crossed.
according to the professionals, I mean,
Mm.
aren't we hearing today in government? I mean, I think at 12 o'clock, between 12 and 2 o'clock today, or whenever the PM is doing his talk with his friends, all the experts, they're going to be telling
Oh
us
yeah.
if they're going to reduce the 2 meter rule down to 1 meter.
Oh yeah, yeah.
To
So that
think
they
that
can
that's going
open
to make such a
restaurants and
difference,
stuff.
yeah. I'm
I
happy.
think it's so that they can open restaurants and pubs so that it can actually be, they can actually open and have tables and people sitting at tables. Whereas if it was 2 meters, it would be like too much of a space. Like you wouldn't be able to get enough people in there. So it's all about the economy and getting
Yeah,
everything back on
it's
track,
about
because
making
that's all the
money.
1 meter distance is for. Yeah.
Well, that's
Unfortunately,
exactly why.
who knows?
Because I read that even though they might relax the rules and open places, there are places like leisure centers who wouldn't be able to function unless it does go down
Yeah.
to the 1 meter rule. So how do you keep a meter? I mean, you probably can if there was a lane in a pool. That's relatively easy. But you're in the same
Yeah.
pool. Does that affect if
So
someone has
all your
symptoms?
bacteria is going in the water. If your snot comes out in the water,
Yeah.
you have to like plug everything up. Like what? You have
Look,
to like plug your nose up, plug your ears up, your mouth.
well, I'm happy that I'm not the person making these decisions, and I can only
Yeah.
appreciate and truly thank those that do have to make these decisions for us, because I'll be the first to admit I've seen a lot of people, looking out the window, even at the beginning of lockdown, where people just didn't care or didn't listen,
No,
and a
and
country is
especially
not
in the
going to get.
UK
Oh, absolutely,
when
and
we were really like the deaths were really high, and I was just like, oh my god, this is like. At first, I was like, we're gonna die. Like I was actually a little bit scared. The deaths were so high, and
yeah.
obviously I've just calmed down a bit now. But and you're like, oh my god, this is serious shit, and people didn't really give a shit.
I actually heard people say, you know what, I don't have coronavirus, so I'm going to be fine. And
Oh my
I
god,
didn't know how to respond. I mean, you might not have it now, but your actions and behaviors are most certainly going to probably get you some
pass it on to
coronavirus,
someone.
And I
Yeah,
mean, people who, I don't want to talk about it too much, but I mean, again, it was in the news where people totally disregarded the advice and the rules and just said, you know what, we're going to have large gatherings and
and
where,
parties and stuff.
yeah.
Like what parties? Seriously?
But the comments are the best. I mean, I'll never forget, the one comment where when they mentioned that the clothing stores, I'm not sure if I can mention the name, but the clothing stores were going to reopen, and the best comment I saw was what? So I can actually go to a supermarket or go to a shopping center and get myself a new outfit, but I can't visit my family and give them a hug or,
Yeah,
or, or have a
that's
cup of
always
tea.
yeah. I think that's been the argument the whole. I think that's been the argument the whole time. Because yeah, they were opening everything up, and it was like, well, we can go there and do that and buy that and go here, but we can't actually even go and see a family and friends, or like schools are going back to normal, or workplaces are going back to normal, and they can go and socialize with people at a distance, obviously at their work
Yeah.
or at school, but I can't go and see family and friends. Like what? But obviously, it's all about the economy, isn't it? So
So let's 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 stay on that topic then. Let's talk. Where do you think travel is now? Obviously, it's not going to be the same. I mean, I don't think it's that bad where people are like, oh my God, travel is just never going to be exactly how it used to be. Obviously not
no,
for the immediate future, but I mean, over time, it will gradually just wean off this whole pandemic scare and people will be able to, you know, still bug the airlines to get an upgrade to first class. I mean, not that I do that. I do, but, um, what
they
about
say people who ask,
planes?
they'll never give it to people who ask. You know that.
I mean, I only ever got a free upgrade once. I was in Munich coming back from Dubai or going to back to Dubai. I couldn't remember exactly. And we were at the gate in Munich and the lady called me over and I was like, oh, fuck, here we go. What, what now? Called me over and there wasn't just one. There were like two other people stood there. And I genuinely thought, what have I done now? She called me over and she goes, oh, are you traveling by yourself? And I said, yes. And she asked me like, where are you going? I said, well, I'm going to Dubai. I mean, it was right above the gate. I think it was Dubai. I was going back from the UK to Dubai. And she said, oh, can I see your ticket, please? I said, well, I have a ticket. I'm, 333A or whatever it was. And she goes, oh, how do you feel about sitting in business class today? I said, oh,
Oh my god,
thank you for so
that
much
is
for
the best
thinking of
deal.
me, but I can't afford that. I can't, not right now. I don't even have enough points. I don't even think I have points at all. But really, thank you, but I can't. She goes, no, one of our staff
For
members has
free.
just told us that they need to jump on the plane. So we're going to upgrade you to business class and they need to sit in your seat. And I said, well, go ahead. And, got
Oh
onto
my
the
god,
plane, get to
I
my
hope that's me
seat.
one day.
She brings around the champagne. I'm like, oh, sorry. No, I'm all right with
Oh
water. Thank you. No, I don't want to buy champagne now. And she goes, no, sir, it's
no,
free.
it's free.
I said, you said free? No,
I
I was,
think
I
that's what
was,
I'd be like.
I was respectful. I only had two bottles, but and it kept
I
me
would be
going.
like that. I'd be like, is this free? Is this free? Is it all free? And they'd probably be like, yeah. And be like, oh my god.
But it's only fair, right? I mean, it's not an arsehole move. If you are upgraded, you need to take, you know, all the
Yeah.
liberties. Everything they're offering, you have to take. For anyone listening, if you're ever given an upgrade, even in the
Yeah.
lounges, and they've got these free
Oh yeah.
buffets, don't go to WH Smith and get a sandwich. Don't, what you normally
No.
do. Go go to one of these buffets and fill up and just eat as much as you want. Go to the foot massage parlors,
Oh
everything they
my God,
offer,
yeah.
you know.
Who wouldn't?
There are
Who
some people who
wouldn't?
feel a bit bad, like, oh no, I
No
couldn't do that.
way. That's so British.
No offense to the Brits.
The British are too polite.
They are like, oh no, I
No,
mean,
yeah.
we couldn't possibly. Oh, actually, bring me two.
No. Yeah. Yeah, definitely me. That would be a
So,
dream one day. I'd love that.
I
So
mean, look,
anyway, yeah, how do we see travel? How do we see travel looking?
I exactly how it's been going. You know, each country has its own amount of COVID cases and deaths. There are some countries that don't even have deaths who are completely back to normal now. Um,
Yeah, Western Australia, where I'm from, um, they barely had any cases at all.
hmm,
And when didn't really go into a lockdown. And then they came out of their sort of lockdown quite quickly, and things are going back to normal. They went back to normal quite quickly.
yeah,
So I was kind of a bit. That's what also made it really hard, was that my friends and family back home were all just. It was almost like going back to normal, and it wasn't too bad, and it wasn't as scary because there wasn't that many people getting it. So it was really hard hearing them being like, "No, it's fine," and it really wasn't that bad. So yeah, it kind of
hmm.
was fine over there. But me here in the UK, like there were so many cases. I was like, I'm like low key, like I wish I was there, but at the same time, it's like my boyfriend lives here, and like
Yeah,
I live here, and I thought I was gonna have a job here, so I wouldn't obviously want to be in Perth because
yeah.
yeah, this is where I live now. But
I
oh
saw
well,
that. I saw that Australia wasn't going to accept tourists till 2021 anyway. But
yeah.
look,
Well, I'd be allowed to go back,
yeah, I mean, lucky for
but no
some.
one else. Mm.
Sorry, are you Aussie? Turn right back. You know, I think it'll take time. I think it's like anything in life. If you don't rush it, it'll be fine. I think a lot of people who have already planned big trips at the end of this year, people were supposed to go to weddings. All of that's
Oh
on
yeah.
hold, and you're just going to be able to experience that next year anyway.
I think
Um,
next year, yeah, I think next year everything will go back to sort of a normal. Obviously, we'll have to be a bit more careful when it comes to, I guess, certain measures that businesses and airlines and all that take, and we have to be more hygienic because I guess it depends on like, I mean, we could get tested going into a country and then get tested coming out and then quarantine, but then it's like certain countries, I feel like certain countries who have loads of cases still, and if they say, oh yeah, you can come into our country, I feel like you probably wouldn't really want to because you'd be worried you'd get it in that country.
yeah.
Like I'm meant to be going to Pakistan as well in September, and I'm like,
Mm.
I don't think I really want to go because their cases seem to be actually still going up. So it's
Uh,
like
mm.
I wouldn't want to. Yeah, fair enough. I could get tested going in and out, but I might catch it in the meantime, and then it's like I wouldn't really want to do that. Like I would go somewhere that's doing really well, like they haven't got that many cases and they've handled it. But I guess that's when the countries that will struggle will be the ones that haven't, and they still have high cases. Like I don't think the tourism will go back to normal. They'll have to wait until it like dies down there, I
So
guess.
it's trying to find the balance of each country trying to protect their own people as much as possible and
Yeah.
also opening up the economy for tourists. So it will be down to each individual place, how
Yeah, I
they,
think so.
so something like this air bridge could be a good thing, but we don't know. I mean, we will never know till we try it. And I mean, we shouldn't knock it till we try it, as they say. But I can't wait to travel. I really can't wait. I've been
Oh my
trying
God.
to plan where to go. I've got a couple of places in mind, but I think personally, I'm probably just gonna wait till 2021. That allows me to save as much as I can. Um,
Are
and
you
of
going to
course,
do local travel, like UK travel in the meantime, you reckon? Or do you reckon you'll put your weight and then put your money towards places that you really want to see outside of the UK?
I think we discussed it. Well, I've discussed it before. I want to go back to South Africa and
Oh, yeah, yeah,
do
yeah.
a good trip there. I've not seen too many YouTubers do South Africa yet. I don't think there's a backpacking scene there, so it'll just have to
Are
be
you going to
part.
film it?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
I need to I need to get on the YouTube bandwagon.
On the YouTubes, I need to get on the YouTube.
On the YouTubes, yeah. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, if it's weird because it's a place that I'm from, and I've never. But it's like anybody in their own country. You hardly ever explore, you know, your
No.
home turf. But this gives me a great opportunity to, especially in this day and age, with how technology is so advanced and how accessible countries are these days. I think that's probably the first place I would want to go to. And yes, the
And
UK
like,
too.
yeah, and like, will you be able to easily just go straight back in? Like, are you a citizen? Do you have like a dual passport?
I, I
Will
am
that
I
make
am
it
a
easy for you?
I am a dual citizen, so
Yeah.
they they have said that, if you do come to South Africa though, then just enter with your South African passport. They couldn't have said it simpler. I went to the Home Office in London and we had a discussion. This was way before lockdown, and they just said, look, if you want to go back to South Africa, this is what you need to do. You need a passport because you're from there. You're a dual citizen, and that's it. There's no complications. I mean,
Yeah.
so I can't wait. I
That makes it a
haven't.
lot easier.
Yeah, it does. And there's nothing worse than a travel complication, especially when it's your first time there in a long time or your first time at all. It just makes the experience so much more shit. If you get to a place and you think you've got it all figured out, and oh yeah, I got the visa, I got exactly what I needed to do, and then you get there and they're still like, oh, why are you here? What are you doing? I mean, those are all standard questions anyway, but
Yeah, and then panic sets in.
and then you're like, the only way I'm able to stay here is to pay for another visa. And because I'm paying for it on arrival, they're probably going to charge me 500% more. What do I do now? This is all my spending money. You can be as prepared as
I think
possible, but
I think that's what makes when things go wrong. I think that's what makes it the most scariest. Like, we watch YouTubers and travel YouTubers, and they're very easygoing and like, oh, it's fine. Like, if things go wrong, that's all the part of travel. And like, you can be like easygoing to a certain degree and just be like, yeah, that's fine. That's the way it goes. And I think it's a lot easier to be like that when it won't cost you a lot of money if things go wrong. Like, I've always felt like, say if you were traveling around Asia and you missed that train or something like that happened, you
yeah,
just think, oh well, it only cost me XYZ, or even anywhere else besides Asia, but something like that. But then I think if it's a train maybe in Switzerland that costs you 200 euros, that's when you would panic more, I think.
yeah.
And it depends, I guess, on how much backup money you have. And I guess you'd have to sort of make sure you do always have a backup, like when things go wrong. But not everyone always has that excess amount. But I guess you have to equate for that. But I think that's what makes it most stressful. So I think when you miss something and it didn't cost that much, you think, okay, what's fine? That was only X amount of money. It's fine.
Hmm.
But yeah, when it's a lot, you're like, oh my God, it was so much money. And then that's when you get more upset, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of channels on YouTube who do travel that way. They just kind of go with the flow. They get to a destination and sort of plan from there. But regardless of whether you are doing it free flow or you have actually planned your trip to a T, to even to how long you're going to be spending time in the pool kind of thing, you need to have, backup money. I think it's very important because you never know. I
Mm.
mean, I think it's only sensible, and I think everybody knows this who travels regularly, that you can't go to a place with hardly any cash left, or you've already spent everything on all your tours and excursions, and then you're left with like $1 a day for food. It needs to be planned the correct way, and that should avoid, I say should, but I mean more often than none should avoid the complications.
Yeah, like I always feel like I'm someone who researches a trip like so much, but I don't always make sure when I go on that trip that I'm like having this rigid plan or we
Mm,
have to go here and do that. It's just that so that you're prepared for everything, like how much everything will cost or how to get places. And I know if you are someone who's always traveling on the go, like these travel vloggers, if you are full time traveling, you don't always have time for that, I guess. But then I guess you'd have to think, well, you're either going to risk it or I guess maybe do your research and then also make sure you have the money for it
yeah.
if I went wrong.
And what, just a couple of examples, like before going to a certain destination. I mean, I'm, I've most certainly in the past, I've never ever chosen a country or specific destination for anything that was there. I know it sounds weird, but like I've never gone to like China for the Great Wall of China or Egypt for the
Mm.
pyramids. Like I just go somewhere because I go there. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Because
are
it
you
pulls you to it.
yeah, and it's not because 300,000 people have gone there in the last week and it's Instagrammable or nothing like that. I really don't care. But it are you someone who needs to go to a specific place to see something specifically, or do you mix up your travel?
Well, I always feel like I feel like Instagram's good because it just gives you loads of inspiration. Like I never want to go somewhere because everyone's going there. I never want to go somewhere because it's like everyone's been there. Like I'm not like I don't want to follow the crowd, and I always feel like I want to go places that are a bit more untouched and unseen.
Mhm.
Not because that's like the cool thing to do, but I just feel like those are the places that intrigue me a bit more. But originally, when I first started traveling, I would tend to I would just go on Skyscanner and I
Mm,
would pick the cheapest places to fly to. And obviously, I'd research to make sure they weren't too expensive when I got there. Like, you
yeah.
could get a cheap flight to Copenhagen, but it would probably cost you the same amount of money spending money there because it's so expensive. So
Yeah.
I always tried to go for places that I had a bit of an interest in, but were cheap to go to. But nowadays, I am sort of tending to move towards, okay, where do I really want to go? Like, what do I really want to see? Like, what are the sort of places that I like seeing? Like, do I like cities? Do I like mountains? And I do tend to feel like I like more landscape sort of place, like beautiful places. So I'm
Okay.
like, okay, what countries have that? So now I'm tending to go towards places that have more like pretty countryside and all that sort of thing. So I'm like, okay, they usually at the moment the places I want to go to, they cost more money. So I'm like, okay, I need to stop going to all these budget places and maybe put my money towards going somewhere I really feel like I'm pulled to.
Hmm. No, that's cool. I mean,
Yeah.
if something is cheap and like you say, if the flight's cheap and the spending is going to be cheap, then why not? You know?
Yeah.
And it's definitely you've
Especially for someone
definitely
who
yeah.
hasn't been a lot of places. Like if you want to just see, like you just want to go places.
Yeah.
That's how I first started.
All right. Okay, well, I think we've reached the end of our conversation.
I'm like, oh, what
Um,
time is it? How long have we been talking for? I'm not even
an hour.
hungry. Is it
I've
lunchtime? It's lunchtime.
it is in
I
one
haven't
minute.
fainted.
I haven't even eaten today. I thought I'd give it a go by not
What?
eating before 12. Um,
What?
but yeah,
Oh
it's
my
just,
gosh.
I think that it's easier said than done. I can't wait for lockdown to be over. I can't wait for this to be lifted. I can't wait for these restrictions to be lowered. And it's just something we all have to be wary of.
Yeah, come to terms with.
And we need to just deal with it. Let nature take its course. And then as soon as we can all travel again and, you know, get out there and explore the world, I urge everybody to do it because I genuinely think we're going to see a lot of people traveling in the next 12 months, or from whenever when people are able to travel again quite freely,
Yeah,
because
it'll
countries are
probably be
going
a
to,
boom.
yeah, they might even call it the travel boom or something like that, and
Mm.
we can be one of the first to say that it was predicted by us.
Oh, or it might go a completely other direction. Like no one has any money to travel, and no one
Yeah,
goes anywhere.
and
I hope not.
places are even paying you to come to their
Yeah,
countries.
I
So
have heard that.
look, just get on with it. Enjoy the time we have with our friends and family now, because I mean, again, like we said earlier, I mean, YouTube and traveling is a career for some people, and they've not been home in years, since
Yeah,
before the lockdown. So I
they
think,
definitely must feel lost. If you're working in travel, people must like. I feel sorry for those people. They must feel really lost.
and I think we're also going to see a lot of new innovation in travel. I think we're going to see some great new ideas for travel. I think we're going to see a lot of new products on the market. And to be fair, it's like anything. It's uncertain now, but that only leads to to exciting times ahead, you know. And it's
Yeah, you just have to think positively, don't you?
yeah, exactly. And the minute you start saying, "Oh, life's shit," and I've lockdown's been horrible, and my life's quite boring, and you're not the only person. Trust me, like people can't
Yeah.
wait to get out there. Even me, who's been inside for 3 months, purely out of respect for my family to stay inside, self-isolate. It's I can't wait to go outside and just sit in a beer garden, have a drink, and just say, wow, that was worth it. So let's just
Yeah, I
wait and
think we'll
see.
appreciate things more, won't we?
Lauren, thank you so much. And
Thanks for having me.
I hope that you continue to keep creating wonderful content on YouTube for everybody. And I'm sure we'll see you on the road again soon.
Yes, I hope so too. Thanks for having me.
No problem. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.